Imagine bending down for a fallen book in a quiet Seattle bookstore, rain tapping the windows, when a voice behind you whispers, "You always talk to bookshelves." Your heart jumps. You spin around and lock eyes with a stranger whose crooked smile hides a secret that could shatter your safe, lonely world. One brush of fingers, one carved word, and everything changes. But he's a man who never stays. Will this be the love that finally breaks the pattern, or the one that breaks her heart? Stay with me. You won't believe what happens next. Emily Whitman was used to quiet days. She liked calm things, books, tea, and rainy weather. That day, the sky over Seattle was soft and gray, and rain tapped gently on the bookstore cafe's windows. Emily had worked there for 3 years. She enjoyed the smell of old pages, the way people smiled when they found a book they loved, and the peace that came with being surrounded by stories. The shop was quiet that afternoon. Emily was restocking a bottom shelf when she noticed a book had slipped and fallen behind the wooden case. She sighed softly, tucking her brown hair behind her ear, then bent down to reach for it. She stretched her hand as far as it could go, almost touching the spine, when she heard a voice behind her. "You always talk to bookshelves." Startled, Emily straightened up fast and turned around. She almost bumped into someone, Jake Lawson. He stood just a few feet away, smiling with that crooked grin she'd seen a few times before. He'd been coming into the bookstore for the past couple of weeks, always quiet, always wearing the same dark hoodie, always alone. She had noticed him, of course. How could she not? He was tall, with messy dark hair and deep blue eyes that didn't match the calm way he moved. His eyes were the kind you remembered even when you tried not to. Emily felt her cheeks grow warm. "I wasn't talking to the shelf," she said quickly, then paused. "Okay, maybe I was." Jake laughed, a soft, genuine sound that made her heart skip. He bent down beside her, reaching easily for the book she couldn't grab. "Here," he said, holding it out. "Let me." Emily took the book from his hands slowly, her fingers brushing against his. The air between them felt different, quiet, but charged. It's like something important had just happened, and neither of them knew what it meant. Yet. "Thanks," she said, clearing her throat. "I swear this shelf keeps getting smaller. Or maybe you're getting taller," he teased, standing up and slipping his hands into his jacket pockets. Emily smiled without meaning to. Not likely. They stood there for a second, not speaking. Outside, the rain tapped softly against the glass. Inside, the shop was warm and still, like time had taken a small breath and decided to rest. Jake looked around, then back at her. "I've seen you here before. You work here." "Yeah, almost full time now," she replied. "You come in a lot, don't you?" "Yeah." He said, "Something about this place feels real." Emily tilted her head. "It's real." "Yeah, like it doesn't pretend to be anything." "It's not. It just is." She liked that answer more than she wanted to admit. Jake stepped back, giving her space. "Well, I'll let you get back to saving fallen books." Emily nodded, watching him walk toward the shelves near the back. As he moved, he ran his hand gently across the spines of the novels, like they were old friends. He didn't rush. He didn't look at his phone. He seemed like someone who actually saw the world around him. Emily tried to return to her task, but her thoughts were spinning. Why had her heart jumped like that when she turned and saw him? She barely knew him. Just a name, a face, a smile she'd seen from behind the counter. But there was something different about the way he looked at her, not in a flirtatious way, but like he was genuinely curious about who she was. The rest of the day moved slowly. Jake didn't say anything else, but he stayed in the store for a while, reading in the corner with a cup of coffee. When he left, he gave her a small nod on the way out. Nothing big, but it stayed with her. That night, as she walked home with her coat pulled tight against the drizzle, Emily couldn't stop thinking about him. Jake Lawson. Who was he really? Why did he seem like someone who carried stories inside him but rarely shared them? And why did her heart feel like it had taken its first deep breath in years just from being near him? She didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning. This was the moment things shifted. The simple act of bending down to pick up a book had brought her face to face with someone who would change her life. It didn't feel like fate at the time, just another quiet moment in another quiet day. But sometimes love doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it shows up in silence, in a laugh, in a glance, in the brush of a hand offering a forgotten book. Emily had always believed in stories. She just never thought she'd walk right into one of her own. Jakey came into the bookstore the very next day. Emily was arranging some bookmarks near the register when she saw him walk in through the door, rain still dripping from his jacket. But this time he wasn't empty-handed. He was holding 2 coffee cups. He walked up to the counter and placed one in front of her. "Thought you might need this," he said with a small smile. Emily looked down at the cup, then up at him. "How did you know my order?" I asked yesterday when you weren't looking. He shrugged like it was no big deal. His eyes watched her face. Said it was. Emily laughed softly. So you're sneaky. Oh, only when it comes to caffeine. From that day on, it became a habit. Every few days, Jake would come in near closing time. Sometimes with coffee, sometimes with a new story about something strange that happened on a job site or a book he'd just finished. He wasn't loud or overly confident, but there was something calm about him. He listened. He noticed things. He'd sit at the little table in the back, always facing her, though he never said much when other people were around. Emily found herself watching the clock in the evenings, wondering if he'd come in. And when he didn't, she felt a strange emptiness she couldn't explain. They started talking more. At first, it was small things, books, music, the weather. But slowly, their conversations grew deeper. She learned he was a carpenter who traveled around the Northwest building custom furniture for local businesses. He stayed in one city for a few months, then moved on to the next. Emily thought that kind of life sounded lonely, but Jake said he liked the freedom. No roots, he said one night, sitting across from her while the rain poured outside. No expectations. Emily looked down at her hands. I used to want that kind of freedom. He raised an eyebrow. Used to. She nodded. There was a time I wanted to leave this city, travel, be someone different, but I don't know. Life happens. Jake waited quietly as if he knew she had more to say. Emily hesitated. I was engaged once. His name was Andrew. He was kind, smart, safe. We had everything planned. House, kids, the future. But I realized one day that I wasn't in love with the life we were building. I was just in love with the idea of being loved. Jake didn't speak right away. When he did, his voice was gentle. That's brave to walk away from something safe. Emily gave him a sad smile. It didn't feel brave. It felt like I failed. Jake leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Maybe it was the first time you chose yourself. His words stayed with her over the next few days. Things between them grew softer, warmer. Jake started helping her close the shop, picking up books, wiping tables, making her laugh when she was tired. One night, he showed her pictures of a table he built from salvaged wood. It was beautiful, with curves and knots that told their own story. I love building things that last, he said, watching her face carefully. Emily looked at the photo again. Do you ever stay long enough to see people use them? Jake shook his head. Usually, I'm gone before the paint dries. She wasn't sure why that made her heart ache a little. One evening, just before closing, Emily was restocking a shelf. She bent down to grab a book from the bottom row, not noticing Jake had walked in. When she straightened up, he was standing right behind her. Their eyes met. Neither of them moved. Emily felt her breath catch. He was close, closer than usual. The space between them suddenly felt small, intimate. Jake didn't say anything right away. He just looked at her like he was trying to remember every detail of her face. I didn't come for coffee tonight, he finally said. Emily's voice was quiet. No, Pon, he shook his head. I came for you. The room felt too quiet. The sound of the rain, the smell of books and cinnamon from the cafe, it all faded. Jake took a step closer. I keep telling myself I shouldn't get close, that I'll be gone soon, that you deserve more than a guy who builds things and disappears. Emily's heart thudded in her chest. Then why are you here? He reached out and gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. Because I can't stay away. Emily didn't know what to say. Her thoughts spun, full of hope and fear. She'd protected her heart for so long, but this was real. It wasn't rushed or forced. It had grown slowly like a flower opening in rain. Still, a voice in her head warned her to be careful. He was leaving. He always left. But looking at Jake now, with his hands so close, his eyes so honest, Emily wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was the kind of love you didn't plan for, the kind that arrived quietly, unexpectedly, but stayed in your heart long after it was gone. And in that moment, she didn't pull away. She let herself feel it, even if it hurt later. Because for the first time in a long time, Emily Whitman didn't feel alone. Two Emilys stood at the front counter, watching the rainfall outside the bookstore window. It was late, almost closing time, and the store was nearly empty. The soft hum of the heater, the quiet sound of pages turning from the back corner, and the ticking of the old wall clock were the only noises around her. She looked down and noticed the tip jar had rolled under the counter. With a small sigh, she bent over to pick it up. As she reached for it, she heard the bell above the door ring softly. She smiled without looking. She already knew who it was. Jake. Just as she was coming back up, she felt something behind her, sudden closeness and the soft brush of fabric touching her back. She turned quickly and found herself face to face with Jake. He was standing just inches behind her, his eyes locked on hers. He looked different tonight, not just wet from the rain, but serious. His usual smile was gone. "I didn't come for coffee," he said quietly, his voice deep and steady. Emily's heart skipped. She stood up straight, surprised, unsure. "What do you mean?" Jake stepped closer, slowly, as if every move mattered. He held something in his hand, a small wooden bookmark, hand-carved. He offered it to her without a word. Emily took it gently, her fingers brushing his. She looked down and read the word carved into the wood. "Stay," her eyes lifted to meet his. "Jake, I've been trying to talk myself out of this," he said, "trying to tell myself I don't belong here, that I'll only make things harder for you." Emily didn't speak. She felt frozen in place, like the moment was too full to move. Jake ran a hand through his damp hair, clearly nervous. "But every day I see you. Every time you laugh at something dumb I say, I stop wanting to leave. It's never happened before." She looked at the bookmark again. The word felt heavy, full of meaning. "You don't even know if you can stay." "I know," he said. "But I wanted to stop pretending. I don't care." Emily felt something shift in her chest, something old and closed off slowly starting to open. She had spent so long guarding her heart, keeping it safe from disappointment, from heartbreak. But Jake wasn't just anyone. He had walked into her life quietly and stayed. Not with promises or grand gestures, but with presence, kindness, and truth. "You said you always leave before the paint dries," she whispered. "I do," he said, "but I don't want to this time." The silence between them stretched. The store around them faded. The shelves, the clock, the soft light, all of it disappeared behind the feeling that filled the room. Emily didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to lean into him, to close the space between them. The other part was scared. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "I've been so careful, so afraid to fall again." Jake nodded. "I know. I can feel it when you pull away." He wasn't blaming her. He was just being honest, and that honesty broke something loose in her. "I want to trust you," she said, "but I don't know how." Jake reached out and took her hand gently. "Then don't rush. Just let me be here. Let me show you." His fingers wrapped around hers. Not tight, not demanding, just warm and steady. Emily looked at their hands and then into his eyes. She could see it. He meant every word. Maybe it wasn't a forever kind of promise. Maybe it wasn't the fairy tale she once imagined, but it was real. And sometimes real is better than perfect. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I," he replied, "but that doesn't mean it's not worth it." Outside, the rain continued to fall. Inside, Emily took a slow breath, then nodded. Not a big nod, just enough. They didn't kiss. Not yet. There was too much feeling between them for that moment to be rushed. Instead, they stood there hand in hand, surrounded by the soft light of the bookstore and the sound of a storm. It was quiet. But in that silence, everything changed. That night, as Emily locked up the store, Jake walked her home. They didn't talk much, just shared the kind of silence that feels safe, comfortable. At her door, he didn't ask to come in. He simply said, "Good night," and touched her cheek gently before walking back into the rain. Emily stood in her hallway for a long time after he left, holding the carved bookmark in her hand. Stay. The word echoed in her heart, louder than the thunder outside. And for the first time in years, Emily allowed herself to believe maybe someone would. The days that followed felt different, softer, warmer. Emily woke up thinking about Jake and went to sleep with his voice in her head. They didn't label anything. There were no big talks about what this was or where it was going, but something real had begun between them, something quiet and careful, like the start of a new chapter. Jake still came to the bookstore most evenings. Sometimes he brought coffee, other times just himself. They would talk, laugh, share silences that no longer felt awkward. He showed her photos of the workshop he had set up in a friend's garage on the edge of town. He was building a dining table for a family who had lost everything in a fire. "They want something that feels like home again," he'd said. Emily loved listening to him talk about his work. He wasn't just a man who made things, he poured feeling into every curve of wood, every corner, every nail. His hands told stories even when his mouth didn't. One afternoon, as they sat together on the bookstore floor, sorting through a box of donated poetry books, Emily looked up at him. "Do you ever wish you had roots somewhere?" she asked. Jake paused. His hands rested on a worn copy of Robert Frost. "Sometimes. But roots mean responsibility. They mean you have to stay even when things get hard." "And you're afraid of that?" she asked gently. "I'm afraid of getting it wrong," he said. "Of hurting someone, of making promises I can't keep." Emily nodded, understanding more than she wanted to admit. "Me too." Jakey reached for her hand. He didn't squeeze it, he just held it lightly, like he was reminding her he was still there. They had not kissed yet. It wasn't that they didn't want to. It was that the space between them was so full of emotion. Neither of them wanted to rush the moment. They were both healing, both carrying quiet scars. And sometimes love grows better when it's given room to breathe. But the silence didn't last forever. One night, a week before Jake's work in the city was due to end, he walked her home like always. The air was cold, but the sky was clear, filled with stars. When they reached her apartment door, Emily turned to say goodbye, but Jake didn't move. "I've been offered a job in Vancouver," he said, voice low. Emily blinked. "That's far." "Yeah, they want me there in 2 weeks." There it was, the moment she'd quietly feared. She had known he would leave. He always did. But now that it was real, it felt like something heavy had fallen into her chest. She looked away. "I guess I should have seen it coming." He reached for her hand. "Emily, don't do that. Don't pull away." "What do you want me to say?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "That I'm fine. That I understand." "'Cause I don't. I don't understand how something can feel this right and still have an ending." Jake stepped closer. "It doesn't have to be an ending. I don't want it to be." Emily searched his face. "Then what is it?" Jake looked scared, not of her, but of what he felt. "I don't know. I've never felt like this before. You're not just another stop for me, Emily. You're the first place that's made me wonder what staying could feel like." Her heart broke a little and healed at the same time. "I don't want to be someone's maybe," she said softly. "I've done that before. I want to be someone's choice." Jake didn't answer right away. He looked down, then back at her. "I don't know what the future looks like, but I know I'm not ready to walk away from this. Not from you." Then finally, he leaned in slowly, carefully, giving her time to pull away if she needed to. But she didn't. Their lips met gently like a question, then again like an answer. It wasn't rushed or fiery. It was deep and full of everything they hadn't said out loud: fear, hope, longing. When they pulled apart, Emily rested her forehead against his. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I," he said. "But maybe we can be scared together." A week later, Jake left for Vancouver, but not alone. Emily drove with him to the city, spent a weekend helping him set up his workshop, and promised to visit again soon. They didn't call what they had a relationship. They just called it real. They texted daily, sent photos, shared little parts of their day. Emily missed him, yes, but she didn't feel abandoned. This time, distance wasn't an ending. It was just a pause. A month later, Jake surprised her. He showed up at the bookstore just before closing, holding a bag of her favorite pastries and a carved wooden sign that read, "F. Home is wherever you are." Boss Emily burst into tears right there behind the counter. Happy tears, tears of relief, because for the first time, love hadn't left her. It had come back. It had stayed. And in the quiet comfort of that bookstore, with the scent of coffee and pages all around, Emily finally understood sometimes love doesn't need grand speeches or perfect timing. Sometimes it just needs two people brave enough to stay when it's easier to walk away. And Jake stayed.